Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. When we're looking at my plants as I water them, I always start over here and go round there and get about halfway and pack it in. So today I've already done that, and I thought we'll now do the orchids on the other side. Which we don't see anywhere near as often as a consequence. This is a mixed match. There's all sorts over here, including Derek's plants, which I always do last, which might not be included this time. But basically it's the normal routine. I'll pick a plant up. If there's anything to discuss, we'll have a quick look at it. I water it, so you have to put up with the clanging, and I may well run out of water part way through and have to stop and replenish the stocks. But anyway, let's get going, see how we get on. Right, this is some Black Comet, Orchids, coming to the end of its blooming now. On that subject, everything in bloom on the 8th. The 8th is Saturday. I've got an Orchid Society meeting, so I won't be filming on the 8th. I'll do it on the 7th this time, so it'll be a day early. Obviously, if I do it a day late, it interferes with Sunday. So that's what we'll do. So you get everything in bloom. Probably be the world's shortest video. Now, as this plant is coming to the end of its blooming, its new shoot is already starting, so there is a new growth down at the base there. Let's let misery guts out, come on. He's changed his habits now. If he goes out sort of mid-morning, the sun's in the corner where the bamboo is, and he likes just lying there in the sunshine. So instead of just going upstairs on the bed, which he normally does in, in a half light, he's spending much more time outside now, which is good. He's out in the fresh air. Now this is Midnight Star, very similar to the one we've just looked at. This is coming to the end of its blooming now, and I can see one new growth at the base of the bulb with the blooms on, which is typical. That's how they work. Then we got this thing, which again is it's a sort of prosthetia. I've got it down as Anachelium, but I think it is prosthetia nowadays. It has lovely flowers on it. We won't look at those, otherwise we'll interfere with Friday's video. It's climbing over the pot now. It's got new growths really squashed up against the edge of the pot. What we did with Catatanti was to split it and divide it. And that's what needs doing to this, because the centre of the plant has got lots of bulbs that are a bit shriveled, and quite a few have dropped their leaves now. So although they can count as backup, we've got plenty of good strong plants at the front, bulbs at the front. So. But this is another one that's a bit like that Catatanti was, apart from the blooms. It's doing everything, it's growing new roots, and it's pushing up new growths, and it's in bloom. So it's got everything covered. And there's still another spike just started. So it's going to be in bloom a bit longer, but as I say, we won't look at the blooms as such, because these will get looked at on Friday as they're actually in bloom. Whether these two will still be in bloom or not, I don't know. Probably not, actually. Depends on the rate they drop their blooms. That's the next shelf. So these are some of these you don't see very often. This is Berryoda, kikis that were given to Hannah, which she didn't really want. So Dad, basically it's a couple of small kikis and a kiki growing off a cane. Now Berryoda is related to Kingianum. They do that frequently. That's nothing out of the ordinary. And that actual cane has got 1, 2, 3 more kikis starting on top of the one it's already got. And that's what they do. Kiki machine. But I'm just going to leave them on there. I mean, it's a young plant. It's what I would class as nothing special. This is Dendrobium spectabile. We split this not long ago. Got rid of the old tatty bits. This has signs of new roots down next to those tiny little immature growths. So it's not doing well, but I will say it's given its comfort zone, it's not in it. So it's never going to do that well probably. But we can keep trying. As long as it's alive, we keep trying. Name of the game. And then this is the other piece. This new growth here has another new growth and some roots starting at the base. So maybe this one will pick up. But both pieces had virtually no active roots and no sensible root systems at all. So whether they make it or not, I don't know. We shall see. But that's two pieces of the same Latoria type, that one. Right, as I say, this shelf is a right mix. This is Tahitian Dancer. It's actually got best hybrid in show. You wouldn't think it looking at the plant, would you? Not quite sure how that happened. I had nothing to do with it. Oncidium intergeneric, basically, with an emphasis on Sotoanum. New growth there, just the one at the moment. Yep, just the one at the moment. See how that goes. It's one of those Oncidium intergenerics that's just okay. It's not growing well, but it's not going downhill. It's just not growing well. And we've got a biggie. This is Aussie Sweetness crossed with Tapiniense. Lovely big new growth coming up here, starting to form its leaves now. Never bloomed for me, despite producing some good canes. Usually 2, sometimes 3 leaves. These canes are pretty good, but never bloomed. And it doesn't like coming out of this black pot to be watered. So we'll have to get the pliers on it. Out you come, no good fighting it, you're coming out. Now this has got some roots, but there's no new ones at the moment. And that new cane, this one, is just starting to produce some fresh roots. Given the size of the plant, the amount of roots that one cane is going to produce is still not going to be a good enough root system to really support this plant properly. So it still may not bloom, even on this nice new growth. But there are some other roots in the pot that are actually splitting, dividing, producing new shoots. So who knows? We will wait and see. There's a habit of falling over that one, so I always lean it against something. And then this is Roy Tokunaga. It's just not growing. It's just not growing. It does have a few tired old roots in that pot, but they're not active. And no signs of new growths at the moment, so not doing very well at all. Just won't get going. And that's probably not helping. This one's got some scale on it. Now it's on an old cane that hasn't got any leaves, so they can't really do much harm, but they can move. But there's one on the it's got a few removed, done manually. And what have we got here? What we got here, have to set Rick on this plant, get him to tell it off. the latest leaf on that new growth has failed. However, the other new growth has pushed on well, and we're going to have some blooms on here, and it looks like that bud is just starting to crack, so who knows, that might be open by Friday. This is my only Phalaenopsis type Dendrobium. The only reason I've kept it is because I like the red tinges to the leaves. The blooms aren't that spectacular really. They're nothing special. Right, that is what is it? It's Cambria on the tag. I wrote Cambria on the tag. Not really any such thing nowadays, but if it ever blooms again, it has gorgeous blooms on it, so I keep it going. Typical Oncidium intergeneric. It's pushed up some inferior growths, but we've got a new growth coming out the back of the plant, very unusual that, and quite a good strong new growth coming out the front of the plant. So what I would say about that is it's on the up. Very far I'm going to get to this water, not much further. The cotyledons are coming up soon, and there's some big ones, so I will have to mix up more. I won't film that, it's tedious. That one, I doubt if I'll even be able to finish this shelf at the moment. Now we're on to the nobly types, and this is a Dendrobium hybrid, so this has got no ID. When you get a new growth starting at the base of an old cane and it instigates the root system, you need to remember that for that plant, the roots on this plant come on the growth that the new growth is coming out of, not on the new growth. Yeah, so that's how that one grows, and it's doing it. Obviously got a new growth just starting here, another one just starting there, and the roots on those growths are going mad. Yeah, so that's how that one grows, and that one has got no ID. I'll have to empty that soon and just get the last few that I can do, and I'll take a break, mix up some more. When I'm doing a watering run like this and I run out, which I often do because I don't like having a load left over, I don't like keeping mixed up fertiliser. I like to use it as soon as I mix it. It'll keep for a few days, I suppose, but I'd just rather not have to. So I always end up mixing up too little rather than too much. Right, so another nobly type. This is Prima Donna. Been with me since about 2014. But this is just a piece of various sort of iterations of this plant from when I first... The one I first got has long since gone. This is a piece of a piece of a piece. We've got a new growth coming up this end and a new growth coming out that end. So at the moment I've got two new growths, and again, new roots starting in places. Recently been repotted, so this one should be okay. I'm just going to pour the last of this mix in here so that I know what I'm working to, because that's what there is until I stop and mix some more. Quite a few of the plants that we're looking at now are in proper active growth, and we're in the growing season, So there isn't anybody getting a trickle. They're all getting drowned. Yeah, they get a. I can't do a soak. It would do some of the plants a world of good, I must admit, but because I grow in bark, if you try and soak plants in bark, to get the plant, you know, right in and up to the right depth, the bark floats off, so you end up messing up. Now this one, I'm going to have to leave in the black pot. What is this? This is Sweet Pinky Momoko. And the bases are swelling on these canes, but they haven't started to grow yet. But it's actually quite loose in the pot, so I don't actually want to lift it out. So we'll just water it in the black pot. Doesn't matter, it runs out the bottom. And out the holes in the black pot. It just means we haven't had a look at the roots. But this one hasn't long been repotted. The bark's quite new. I doubt if I'm going to get any more now. That will probably be the last one that I can get. And I'll have to stop. It's a pity actually, I think there's only one more left on this shelf. No, there's two. Right, we'll do one of them because I know the one that's here is in moss. And that never needs a lot, it only needs to be damp, it doesn't need to be soaking wet really. And these, the Dendrobium hybrid that we looked at, was that this one? Yes. That had its large canes cut off because they were keeping the plant going over. The kikis were taken off of there, Carol had some, and this is the rest of the kikis, which are either, I think they're growing kikis, so we've got kikis growing kikis now. Yeah, those are not flower spikes, those are kikis. So it's just its way. It has bloomed, you know. It's, so these don't get a huge soaking because the moss wicks. So you know, even if I've missed some bits that didn't get any water, you know, the damp bits will even themselves out in the pot. And I don't like anything that's in moss being absolutely soaking wet. It just stays wet too long. I don't get the temperatures. You know, I mean, I don't do Fahrenheit, so when somebody says I've got 80 to 90 degrees, that means nothing to me. All I know is that I think it's either 70 or 75 is 20. So obviously 80 to 90 is quite a bit more than 20. But my high temperature in here, in the summer with the sun, is 26. That's as good as it gets. If I don't get the sun, it's 23, 24 degrees centigrade. That's not warm. Yeah? So that's how I grow, you know. And without the higher temperatures, there's a lot of things just grow slower than they might do with the higher temperatures, yeah, and getting rained on and whatever other people do. Anyway, that's that one, and I will break off now. We'll get some more mixed up, and then we'll come back and restart from where I am. We'll finish that shelf off. I'll be back. Right, let's carry on from where we left off. There is only one more on this particular shelf, which is quite a large shelf. This is a tatty looking plant, but it has got new growths coming, and it does have spikes, but we'll do spikes another time. We've got 3 or 4 new growths and some spikes on this one, and eventually the old tired tatty leaves will fall. Oncidium intergeneric again. Actually, I'm not sure it is an intergeneric. What are we looking at here? Cherry baby, so no. And basically it's not growing as well as it should. It objected to being repotted, so although that pot looks like it's full of roots, these are old tired roots that don't function very well. So it looks like it's got lots of roots, but They're not working as well as they should. Right, let's get everything back on this shelf. Then we can move on. As I say, this is a large shelf. The Noblies go along the back, so they're closest to the glass, brightest light, and then the Latorias and other types, they sit behind them, so they don't get quite as much light. It's not a lot of difference really, but they do get a bit of shade. Whoops, I thought you might do that. It's the trouble, when you've got something that falls over very easily, you can almost guarantee that it'll take something else with it. And in this case it tipped this one and we lost some bark, but it's easily recovered. What I was trying to do was get at this Oncidium type. These also go along the back. That's the brighter ones, and we've got the not so bright ones. They just sit along the in front of those. As I say, they don't get quite as much light. This one I have to go careful where I put it, because at the drop of a hat it would fall over. So it has to lean against something carefully. And when you lean something carefully to stop it falling over, you have to remember that you've done that when you pick it up next time. Otherwise, when you pick it up next time, whatever you leant it against could be hooked behind a leaf, and as you pull the plant out, that leaf will pull the other plant over. If you had a grow room or a grow space big enough, then you could avoid all these things by having a really big amount of space around each plant, not touching and all that. Is that any good? Well, not when you want to lean something against something else to stop it falling over. No, it's not. This shelf's actually got room for more plants on it if I wanted to, but you won't worry, what's on it is okay. That's that. And then down on the shelf below, we have my little thing. Rangus, not doing very well at all. Does have some new growths and should produce some new roots. It's just not a happy plant. It could do with being warmer. And these are either Madagascar or Africa, not the south coast of the UK. Anyway, so this one's down on the lower shelf because it's a shadier plant, doesn't like too much bright light. And the other one down on this shelf is this one, which is Hibiki. This is coming into very active root growth. There were no roots at all below this top inch, or 2.5 centimetres, and now we've got loads of active roots, much lower down and getting right down to the bottom of the pot. So this is growing roots really well. Virtually every growth on this, every cane is in growth. Some have come to the end of their growth, but it's the best Hibiki I've ever had. It's a good plant. And now that it's got a good root system, it should stay a good plant. I used to have to water this incredibly carefully because it was quite a large pot to accommodate its width, but there were no roots down in the pot to dry out the pot, so I had to give it just a tiny trickle around the top, just to keep those roots happy. Whereas now I can soak it because the pot's full of roots. And that's that. The rest of that shelf are Derek's plants. I may get onto them, I may not. but not now. Now we move on to this shelf, which is the high shelf, most of which are cotyledons, but there's a few oddities out here, like this one. This is a Prosthetia radiata. New growths, several, and spikes just starting in some of the older growths. So coming into bloom and coming into growth. And we've got active root trips, so it's doing everything basically. One of the most fragrant orchids you can get, radiata. Sent Hannah scatting when all of Burnham's specimen plants of radiata came into bloom. They got moved out into the Orchid Paradise area, and we went out there to look round at the whole place, and Hannah said, "What on earth is that fragrance?" And I said, "I don't know, we'll have to find it as we go round." And around the time that we actually found it, she said, "I'm going to have to go out. It's giving me a headache basically." And she gets migraines very easy, and on the day out that's the last thing you need. So she had to go out. Vacate the premises. Right, what have we got here then? This is a Cotyledon Moriana. Is it Moriana or Moreliana? Moriana. This is the standard species, nothing special. Recently repotted. The new growths on it are nice big fat plump bulbs. The older ones are not. The older ones are not mine. I didn't grow those. I've grown on the new growths, which are all producing a mass of roots. So I don't see any reason why those new growths shouldn't provide enough energy to produce blooms on the next growths. Why am I not saying these growths are going to bloom? Because on this one, the flower spikes come straight out of the centre of the new growth. So if they produce leaves, they've missed their chance. So those three lovely big new growths aren't going to bloom. Two of them already have, one didn't. But they will now provide the resources for the next set of growths, which haven't started yet, which should bloom. Very, very large flowers, several on a spike. So it needs a lot of energy to produce blooms. The only way it's going to get that is nice big fat bulbs and a good root system. Now this is the Cotyledon cristata that we got, and this is nice to see. We don't very often see Cotyledon roots. They're hairy, or the ones on cristata are, and we have our new growth. Yeah? So existing roots are branching or growing, one or the other, and we have a new growth that should produce new roots as well. So to say, it's not the standard cristata, it's not a named variety or anything. It's just basically a bit special. Somebody spotted it out in the Far East as being a bit special with wavy petals and sepals, and brought it back, and it's been grown on and divided ever since, and is still going strong. That's that one. Now we've got one, a little one. This is Speciosa, and it's the variety Burnham, so it's one of Burnham's own. Now it hasn't been repotted, but it hasn't long been in this pot, and it's in Burnham's bark. There is some signs of root growth. Unusual Cotyledon, this one, because it has very fat leaves. I mean, you know, width. It doesn't look much like a Cotyledon, but it's growing roots, and it's finishing off maturing the last new growth. So it's doing okay. It'll get repotted next time round, I suspect. But it's doing okay. It's growing roots and maturing. So it's a young plant basically, it's not a large plant. And then we've got one that's not doing very well at all, which is Natida. And Shriveled bulbs, latest growth's not good, and no sign of new roots. Not a happy bunny at all, that one. There are some existing roots. It's basically sulking, having been repotted. And some cotyledons do that, and some do it badly. I had one once that went nearly 2.5 years of doing absolutely nothing. No roots, no new growths. Just sat there, 2.5 years. How I never threw that out, I don't know. And then it grew a new growth and started to grow some roots and then keeled over. So I lost it. Right, this one, I don't like what's in this pot, but this is the one with the flower, and it's probably going to be sequential, but it depends how much energy this plant's got. And it can't have a lot really. It's got a leafless bulb, a couple of leaves with a not very large bulb compared with this one, and then the new growth with a single leaf and the flower. So it's not a strong plant. Now this came from Burnham's, but it's not a Burnham's plant. That particular time while I was at Burnham's, the Devon Orchid Society were there and had a sales table, and it was on that. So that's where it came from. Got enough space here? Possibly. Won't be sitting pots on top of leaves here. We've got a couple of biggies now. And this one can have a new bottom pot because I've got spares. Now the cymbidiums have gone outside, we don't need that anymore, and we can have that instead so that it actually fits. Now this is another, oh no, this is Lawrenciana. What we've got with this one is a load of new growths. I think there's 4. They're all clustered together. So we've got 4 new growths coming on here. Yeah, they will produce roots, but I've already got actively growing roots from the base of where those new growths are. So we will have roots in the pot, plenty of them. I suppose I could pop it out. I've taken it out of the black pot for a while. We could have a look and see what the pot actually looks like. See if we've got a lot of root activity or not much. So these are the old roots down in here with some air gaps, unfortunately. That's just how it went. And we've got root tips, including some right down in the pot. So yes, we are growing roots. The old part of the plant is quite shriveled. The new part is pushing out new roots. So the new part of the plant should get plenty of support as the new growths move on and add to the root system. So, now with cotyledons you've got to go a lot. I won't say all because some are warmer growers, but most are cool growers. And when you get into the summer months, I'm going to put this one back, I'm running out of room. When you get into the summer months, if you've got high temperatures or higher temperatures than they like, they will stop growing. And if your cotyledons get in that situation and you keep watering and feeding them heavily, that's when their roots rot, right in the middle of the growing season, when you'd least expect it. And it's because they've stopped growing. So watch your temperatures. If it starts getting a bit warm, you need to stop feeding and ease back a bit on the watering. Enough to keep them hydrated, obviously, because of the temperatures. That noise is the red arrows. I don't need to look. They arrived at Bournemouth Airport earlier this morning, and they're obviously based in Bournemouth for today, possibly for the whole weekend. But they will go from Bournemouth Airport to whichever show they're displaying at. But yeah, they arrived this morning in a flurry, flew along the runway in formation and then burst all over the sky, and then spent the next 5 minutes trying to find the airfield again to land. Nice sight to see them. Right, this is the other Moriana, and this is variety Magnifica, awarded plant. And again, Older part of the plant's a bit shriveled, but my new growth here has matured nicely, so has this one, and we have some nice new growths coming. Potentially they might bloom, but we'll have to wait and see. And under some of the front bulbs, not the old part of the plant, we do have new roots. So that one's doing okay. And as I said, as long as my temperatures remain around where they are, then we shouldn't get a problem with these stopping their growth. So they're doing quite well at the moment, so I don't want that to happen. Right, and the last one on this shelf is not a coleogyny. This is what was given to me as Sheilog Tolkien, and it's not, it's Sheilog Marie. And this is doing everything. We'll get it out of its black pot. This is growing roots. It's pushing up growths that haven't matured yet, that have already got a spike on them. And it's got bulbs that have matured that have got a spike, and that bulb is growing a spike and a new growth. Yeah? And this bulb behind it is pushing out two new growths, both of which have a spike. I think there's 4 spikes on here somewhere if I look around. 1, 2, yeah, the other one's tucked in there. So 4 new growths on there. Each new growth from last time has produced two more. So from 2 we now have 4. Logically next time we'll get 8. But let's get these 4 sorted out first, because there won't be room for any more in that pot. So before we can move to 8, this will need another pot. But let's get these spikes sorted out and these blooms sorted out. Now, strictly speaking, I should be watering this with my bloom fertiliser, but there are so many, what I would call good growers, long-term growers, and in some cases a couple of professional growers that just poo-poo the bloom fertiliser and say, doesn't make much difference really, you just as well carry on using the one you're using. And if you think about it, the number of things that have got new buds and spikes forming, I'd have to have a separate feed for those, yeah? So I'd have 2 lots of feed on the go. Well, you know, this table's only so big. So I don't do it yet. But what it may get used for, in fact it's highly likely it will get used for, is the cymbidiums. Because they always get fed and watered separately, and they're outside. So it will be no effort whatsoever to use the bloom fertiliser if and when, I should just say when, shouldn't I? If I put if in there, it puts an element of doubt in there and people start thinking, oh, perhaps he doesn't grow cymbidiums very well. Well, cymbidiums are doing pretty good. As I'm new to cymbidiums, I think they're doing pretty good. Right, so that's the Sheilog Marie. It's funny, it was given to me. Somebody didn't have the space for it because it had turned into a bit of a monster. That was Sean, I believe, down in Devon. Actually, I think he's Taunton, but he's Devon Orchid Society. And that would have been given to me at Burnham's, I expect. We meet at Burnham's on occasions when there's an event. Oops. Sean had quite a few of my plants a while back. He had my huge cristata that was the variety Lemoniana. Lemoniana? Yeah. And I have said in videos, I doubt if he watches every video, he's a younger person, so he's a working person. You know, he can get the spare time that us old gits get that are retired. Time coming out of our earrings. It's funny, yet we say that, and yet we all seem to be busy. Anyway, I have said to him I wouldn't mind a bit of that back if you've still got it and it's still growing, because of its, you know, variety. They don't come up very often. You don't find them very often. Right, so that's the last of the big shelves, basically. That's that one done. And they are, against all odds, on a top shelf. That was a top shelf we've just done. Now the next shelf down is mainly odontypes, except, where is it? Come out and fight. Oh, there it is. The lost orchid has been found, the Nellie Isla. It was hiding. I lost that a few days ago. I searched this place high and low and I thought, you can't lose an orchid. So although this is in my cooler, shadier set, and it is part Odontoglossum, hence a cooler grower, its new growth is pushing on, and hopefully it will provide some roots, and we may get it to grow again because it's not doing very well. And then we're now right up into that corner. The lower shelf on there is all my Masdevallias in one place. The top shelf is an assortment, and a lot of it is Kikis. That's all right, I just got a message up on the camera, but reminding me to back up my clips. Well, I don't back them up, I extract them and put them on the laptop when I get round to it. When I finish filming. So these are all bits. Now this is on, no it's not, it's Dendrobium tortilli. It does have, from the base of one of these Kikis, a new growth. And a Kiki growing out the top of this one, which is growing some roots. Which when it's got a leaf, and a second leaf, and some roots, I will take it off. So that puts the energy into the one that's growing from the base. It's not doing very well, and it's still wet, so it's not going to get anything. It's the trouble, they're not doing very well and they're in moss. They don't dry out. This is my Tetragonum, and the gonum bit is not far off. I don't think that is going to live. I don't think it's doing very well at all. It's got leaves that are turning and then they drop. And I've only got one cane with a green leaf. So, and there's no sign of life at the base and no active roots. It's not doing very well at all. That might not make it. I can't remember whether that's a warmer growing dendrobium, but if it is, then that will be its problem. It's just not warm enough. Nonetheless, it had dried out since last time, but that's evaporation rather than roots. So this is this silly little piece of Cattleya that I haven't got a clue what it is, and that's still damp, so you're not getting water. That's not even in my notes, that. So whether I water it or not doesn't matter that much. And then this is a very rare piece of kit. This is Dendrobium friedrichsianum Hanna. This is what's left of my awarded plant, which has since been thrown out. The mother plant died. I have a Kiki, and at the base of the Kiki I have a new growth. This is precious. Can't be reproduced, the mother plant's gone. And this is all that's left. And it's just coming up to dryness. And this is not just moss, it has got bark in it as well, and perlite. So it's a let's grow some roots mix, which I still don't want to get too wet. But we have a new growth starting at the base. If that progresses and produces a reasonable cane, doesn't matter how big it is, as long as it's got some open leaves and swells up and produces some roots, the plant is safe. Precious, that. And then over here we've got a couple of bits that were left from that strange Oncidium thing I bought. Oncidium Barocco. I bought that at Burnham so that I didn't walk out empty-handed. And it had 6 spikes on it. I thought, well, that'll be a few blooms for a while. We took the 2 front ends off, and each one of those is producing 2 new growths. Now the new growths on the previous plant, which has obviously had more bulbs than this, produced 2 spikes per growth. So what we will get from that, I don't know, but it's okay. It's growing new growths, it had some roots, it will grow more. Quite a vigorous plant. next. This is Dendrobium signatum, which is kikis off the main plant, which died yet again, and it's still wet. The kikis are not showing any signs of life at the base yet. And we've got some nodules on this kiki. If those are blooms, they'll get taken off, which is a shame because the blooms on this are gorgeous. And I've never seen them, only pictures, but it's not strong enough. Not strong enough. And then this is one of the Oncidium types that's probably a twinkle with no tag. If that survives, I'll be surprised, but there are a few straggly little roots hanging out the bottom of that. It's one of those, you know, like some of Derek's plants, it'll either make it or it won't. I sort of lose interest in plants like that unless they suddenly perk up, in which case I take interest again. Again, this is another one, another little Oncidium type. Don't know what it is, but it's got 4 new growths on it. It's coming on. I think it's 2 separate plants, so 2 on each. They're not strong, but they're growing and they are producing roots. So this should pick up. If you think how long I've had Derek's plants and what a mess they were in, and how long it's taken to get them to grow, well, that's what we're looking at with these. That's if they do, of course. Grow, I mean. And then the last one of these little Oncidium types, this one is actually a species, this is Cherophorum. And the new growths on here are quite good. And they are producing a few roots in the pot. Relatively recently repotted. The old part of the plant is quite shriveled, but the new growths aren't looking bad. And it's a miniature plant. I mean, I'm not waiting for that to grow into a monster. It is a miniature. We'll just hope it just keeps going. Right, at some point the battery ran out and I didn't see when, so I don't know how much of that last lot has been missed, but I'm not going back over it, so whatever we missed, we missed. We could have missed all of what's on the table here, I don't know, but as I said, I'm not going back over it, and I've only got one plant left to film, which is in fact Conico, Dendrobium type, and it's still wet. It's got active growths on it. They were all taken off and put into a pot, but so far it's not responded very well, so it's not actually growing very well. So yes, the last thing I said was the red arrows have just taken off, and I said if they look like they're going to come up round here anywhere, I'll just grab the tripod and run outside and see if I can get them on film. But the noise is fading, so I suspect what they've done is taken off to go to whatever show they're going to perform at, or they could have refueled and they're going home, and they've already done that because it is a weekday now. Sometimes they're down here, like they arrive on Friday and they'll do 2 or 3 shows over the weekend, so they're in and out of Bournemouth Airport frequently, and they tend to take off in sets, in formations. The runway's not wide enough to do the full 5 and 4, so they tend to do 3 threes normally, but when they come back they always do a formation run up the runway and then some sort of break or something all over the sky and then back round and land. We shall see. Anyway, so that's it for today. I don't know how much went missing. I will find out when I take the clips off the camera, and I can forewarn at the point I know where the battery went out once I see what the clips will look like, and I can just put some words in there as to how much got missed, and maybe we can get to them another time. So that'll be it for today, and I don't know what I will film tomorrow. I haven't got a clue, but Friday will definitely be everything in bloom on the 8th, on the 7th. Saturday will be nothing, and Sunday will be our Sunday chat. Any suggestions for a subject, stick them in the comments. You never know. Never know your luck. You might get a section of the Sunday chat dedicated to your idea. If you don't put it in the comment and I don't see it, then you won't, unless it's just pure coincidence. Seeing it, oh, health stuff. There isn't any. There's not going to be any updates till I get my echo scan and chat and whatever. So, and that's not even, I haven't even got an appointment yet, so nothing there. Just keep taking the tablets. So be it. It's going to mess me up when I have to go up to the show next Sunday. It's going to because I'm picking Hannah up on the way. The time I'm going to leave here in the morning is not when I normally take my tablets. I normally take them after my breakfast, which is normally sort of 7:30 to 8 o'clock. That's around the time I will get to Hannah's. So I'm going to take my tablets with me and take them when I get to Hannah's so that they get taken at the right time. If I take them before I go, which is, I'm aiming to get there at 8 o'clock, so that's going to be like 6:15 in the morning, I'm not going to get home till quite late in the evening. The gap will be quite large. And my twice a day blood thinner, Tanner, they last 12 hours, which is why there's 2 a day. So obviously if I take one at 6:30 in the morning and don't get home till 9-10 o'clock, I've got a gap. So I think I'll take them at Hannah's. This sort of thing is not going to happen often, so it won't be a big deal. When I spoke to the doctor, I said, well, what would happen if I missed a tablet, like just forgot? And he said, don't worry about it, just carry on with your normal routine. So when it comes round to when you normally take it, take one then. Missing one won't be the end of the world. So that was good to know. So I will see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.